Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Monday, May 18th, 2026. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. In today's episode, in our box office segment, we'll hear from Rebecca Rubin, who unpacks a quieter weekend that is the calm before the storm of summer blockbuster season officially begins with Memorial Day weekend and the debut of The Mandalorian and Grogu, which will be a big test of the health of the Star Wars franchise at the box office. But before we get to that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. The first big Cannes movie sale went down this weekend. A24 won a bidding skirmish for Club Kid. The film was written and directed by Jordan Firstman, a multi-hyphenate that you know from his appearances as an actor on I Love L.A., English Teacher, Mrs. Marvel, and other series. And in other big news that emanated from the Quaset, the auditions for the new James Bond have officially begun. My great colleague Matt Donnelly had the scoop. Tom Francis, best known for his appearances on Broadway and Sunset Boulevard, has in fact done a test for the new regime at Amazon MGM Studios and Amy Pascal, who is producing the next Bond picture. This process marks the first time that a person who is not named Broccoli will be calling the shots for 007. Don't miss our digital cover story published today on Léa Seydoux. The French actress is rocking Cannes with two big films this time around, The Unknown and Gentle Monster. Seydoux opens up to my colleague Daniel D'Addario at a big inflection point for her career. All of these stories and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. Also want to let listeners know that the Daily Variety podcast will take a break after today's episode. We will take a little time to recharge and come roaring back after Memorial Day weekend. We'll be back with fresh episodes on Tuesday, May 26th. And now it's time for conversations with Variety journalists about news and trends in show business. If it's Monday, we're talking box office with Rebecca Rubin, Variety's senior writer for film and media. Michael, Lionsgate's Michael Jackson biopic, bubbled back up the charts to land at number one on what was a slower weekend overall for the box office. But this is the calm before the storm as Memorial Day weekend and summer blockbuster season approach. Rebecca Rubin, thank you so much for joining me to talk about the box office.
Thank you for having me.
You've been very busy with a lot of big numbers and big openings to report. You got a little bit of a lull this weekend, and Michael shot right back up to the top of the charts. Rebecca, did that surprise you?
It did, because it's rare for a movie in its fourth weekend of release to return to the number one spot. The past 2 weekends, The Devil Wears Prada was in first place, and so for a movie like Michael to regain the number one spot just really speaks to its staying power. People are going back to see this movie, and it's just one of those that is really benefiting from the communal experience. It's just had remarkable legs. It has grossed over $700 million globally at this point, and that's going to keep growing. And so it's going to be really interesting to see where Michael tops out.
Not so long ago, this would have been the time that Michael was landing on a streaming service, or at the very least, a paid home video digital window. Do you think the fact that this, obviously the theater, is the only place you can get that? People might be searching for it, but they can't find it on streaming services yet. That's got to make a difference.
So I actually have a magazine story this week about the marketing efforts of Michael. And they knew from the beginning that this was going to be a crowd-pleasing movie, and they really tried to lean into a lot of the concert performances and the music video recreations, because they're songs that people love, and it's just fun to watch that with other people. And so they really revolved all of their marketing efforts around making it feel like an event. They said to me that they want the marketing campaign to feel like an event. That way the movie will feel like an event. And that's something that we've seen with Barbie and Wicked. And that is really what's distinguishing these days, the properties that make people feel like, oh, if I don't see this, I'm going to be missing out on something. And so from the beginning, Lionsgate was really clear that this was a theatrical property that was going to do well on the big screen. And so I definitely think as long as they are racking in the ticket sales like this, I do not see them moving it to streaming anytime soon.
The other big news from the weekend was Obsession, a new horror movie from Focus Features. What do you think drove a good turnout for that one?
I think this is another case of an interesting talent behind the camera. This is from the director Curry Barker. It's his first feature film, but he got his start on YouTube, and it's a name that the people who know him. They were wanting to come out and see what this film was. And it's another example of low budget horror being quite successful at the box office. This movie opened in third place to $16 million, and that is a very decent start for an original film, and especially given the low budget, it's going to be quite successful for Focus Features, which is releasing the film. Again, it doesn't have to be the same type of film that makes something fun to watch in theaters, but horror has consistently been one of those genres that people like to watch in a communal setting.
It seems to me, just from what I can discern from arm's length, you've got to have a narrative around the movie going into it. Curry Barker, the movies that have worked have been from filmmakers that people want to see, or concepts that just really were cutting edge and different than you'd seen in theaters before.
Well, what's so notable about this movie actually is it has fantastic reviews and audience scores. This film got an A- grade on CinemaScore, and it has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. And so when you see that for a horror movie, I think that signals for audiences this might not just be fun, it might actually be a good movie.
It's good also to see the box office spread widely among different distributors. And of course, leading into next weekend, The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to kick off a run of really big blockbuster movies, a lot at stake, a lot to watch. I hope you're resting up, you're in training, taking your vitamins.
So summer movie season officially will kick off over Memorial Day with The Mandalorian and Grogu. And this is one that everyone is keeping a close eye on because it is the first Star Wars movie in 7 years since The Rise of Skywalker, which earned $1 billion in 2019 before the pandemic. And a lot has changed since then, of course, not just with box office, theatrical, and the benchmark that films have for success, but also in terms of Star Wars as a property. They have had a lot of television shows since then, but they have not been able to get a movie off the ground. And so it's going to be really telling to see if this is still a viable cinematic property. And it sounds maybe a little surprising to hear that about a franchise like Star Wars, but they have been having a lot of success on the small screen, and so they have the added challenge now of trying to get a younger generation to now associate this franchise with theaters because it has become so synonymous with Disney Plus over the past 7 years.
For me, somebody who is not absolutely steeped in Star Wars lore, there's still the perception that there is the Star Wars movie, capital S, capital W, and then there have been the Mandalorian and Grogu's and the Rogue Ones and the different kind of spin-off movies. But you're saying that Mandalorian and Grogu, this is as big of a Star Wars movie as it's going to get in the contemporary area.
Well, that's the question. I think the challenge here is getting people to go to theaters for a property. The Mandalorian and Grogu was a television show that ran for 3 seasons. It was very popular when it first landed on Disney Plus, but by the 3rd season, it was declining in ratings and reception. And so there's a lot of interesting factors at play here because it's not a brand new story, and it's going to be a test of whether they can get people who didn't watch the show to feel like they want to see the movie. And there will probably be people who say, I didn't watch the show, and so I'm not going to have any idea what's going on, and I'm going to skip this. So I don't know if this is the best test for what Star Wars is going to be doing moving forward. I spoke to some analysts who think that next year's movie, Star Wars Starfighter, which Sean Levy is directing and Ryan Gosling is starring in, it opens next Memorial Day weekend. And that is an entirely brand new story. It's about a period of time that has not been explored in the Star Wars universe. And so that might be a better fresh start for the franchise, and The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be just an interesting test on if they can turn a streaming property into a theatrical one just with this specific story.
I'm guessing that Disney pretty much, in terms of openings, has Memorial Day to itself.
Correct. From there, summer movie season will be roaring. There's a ton of blockbuster hopefuls. On the lineup is going to be Toy Story 5, a new Minions movie. There's Steven Spielberg's next movie, Disclosure Day. There's the Christopher Nolan movie, The Odyssey. And so a lot coming out over the next 3 months, and it's just a really important time for Hollywood, for movie theater owners, and they're hoping that this is a summer that's going to look a little bit more like pre-pandemic time, something that we've only seen once since the pandemic, when Barbenheimer was all the rage. And so they're hoping that this combination of movies can resemble something closer to that.
Well, the advanced marketing campaign on The Odyssey is working on me. 60 Minutes on Sunday had a terrific segment on Christopher Nolan, really gave you a sense of who he is, and especially as a filmmaker, he was quite articulate, and there is a lot riding on this movie, and I just got to say, it looks fantastic from what I've seen. So be very eager. Remind us when that one opens. It's July, correct?
Yes, Christopher Nolan loves a July release date. That's when all of his movies come out. So The Odyssey will be hitting theaters on July 17th.
So much to watch for this summer. Thank you, Rebecca, as always, for doing the watching. And we'll check in with you next week.
Thank you for having me.
As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. The final season of The Chi is upon us. The ensemble drama set among a sprawling Chicago family has had quite a journey over 7 seasons. The series started on Showtime and will be ending on Paramount+. Season 7 begins on May 22nd. Cartoon Network's Adventure Time is back with the spin-off Adventure Time Side Quests. Finn and Jake are back in action, but this time the series is not on Cartoon Network, but Disney Plus and Hulu. It premieres on June 29th. Don't miss Variety's annual Women of Nashville Impact Report, which was published last week. My colleagues from Variety's music department worked very hard to deliver a survey of 25 top leaders in Music City from a range of disciplines. This is all the homework you need if you're doing business in Nashville. We love to hear from our listeners, so please send thoughts, gripes, and other feedback about Daily Variety to podcasts@variety.com. Before we go, congrats to Claire Danes. Danes will receive the Performer Tribute at this year's Gotham Television Awards. The 3rd annual event takes place on June 1st at Cipriani Wall Street in New York City. Danes has practically grown up on TV, starting with My So-Called Life. More recently, she has starred in The Beast in Me, Fleischman in Trouble, and The Great Homeland. For my money, Danes is as good an example as exists as someone who elegantly navigated the transition from youth to adult star. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton, with contributions from Rebecca Rubin. Sticks, Nicks, Hick Picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice. And don't forget, we'll be back with new episodes of Daily Variety on Tuesday, May 26th.